Welcome to the Safer Schools Task Force meeting, our January meeting. We're glad that you are all here. We got some new members, so I'm going to have people go around the room and introduce themselves, just so that everybody knows who everybody is. And so I'll start back there in the back with Rachel.
I'm laughing because I thought I would be last. So my name is Rachel Johnson. I'm with the Department of Health and Human Services, specifically the Division of Child and Family Wellbeing, and I'm the designee for our secretary.
Good morning. My name is Kendra Vitar with the Department of Justice. I'm the director of our public protection section, which is our policy and sort of outreach focus section, and designee for Attorney General's time.
Good morning to everyone. I am Vanessa Barnes, and I work with Wake County Schools and serve K through 12 high school counselors primarily, but K through 12 specifically.
Good morning. I'm Yvonne Moore, Richmond County. I'm a retired school social worker, 32 years, and I'm back part-time in Richmond County now.
Hi, I'm Mary Kay, and I'm a freshman and brought in here now, generally.
Welcome, Mary Kay.
Great to have you here. My name is Alan Duncan, and I'm on the State Board of Education.
And I'm Billy Lasher. I'm the chair of the Safer Schools Task Force, and I'm the deputy secretary for the Department of Public Safety over juvenile justice.
And I'm Karen Fairley. I'm the executive director of the Center for Safer Schools in the Department of Public Instruction.
Good morning. Jeremy Gibbs, Deputy State Superintendent, North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, District of School Support Services.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eugenia Floyd, and I am from the Chapel Hill Carrboro City Schools and the 2021 North Carolina Teacher of the Year.
Wow. Great.
Good morning. My name is Caleb Lofton, and I'm a sophomore at Myers Park High School.
Good morning. I am Shalana Copany. I am a Wake County employee serving with kindergarten.
Good morning. My name is Dawson Spencer. I work for the Department of Public Safety. I'm the Divisional Policy Manager, and I'm the Secretary's representative on this task force.
Well, thank you all for being here today. I appreciate you taking your time. I know this is a volunteer effort, so we appreciate you all being here, and we do want your opinions and input as we go through the meeting, so feel free to speak up. I tell people all the time, one of the beautiful things of being an albino, which is I am, is that you stick out in a crowd and people will remember you. But the bad part is you don't have the best vision in the world. So if you raise your hand and you start to lose, circulation to your fingers because I haven't called on you, it's not because I didn't want to call on you. It's because I didn't recognize that you had your hand up. So just say, hey, Billy, I had a question or I got a comment, and we'll be glad to stop and take those as we go through the presentations and the stuff that we're covering today. So first up, I want to introduce Dr. Gibbs, who is on the bottom before he introduces himself.
Sure. He's already been at DPI, but now he has transitioned into the position that Dr. Oates formerly had. And it has been only a few weeks. Yeah, the 1st of January. It seems like it's longer than that. But
It's been a long 3 weeks.
yes, it's been a long 3 weeks. But I do have to say publicly that it has been a great 3 weeks. He has been very supportive in all that I have to do thus far. And I don't say that lightly because guess what? Y'all know I'm almost 62. I say what I want. There you go. There you go. I'll hand it to you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Should I stand or
Absolutely.
I don't like to forward over folks, but I told Deputy Secretary that there is no way I'll take 15 minutes. So I will make sure you have some time back on your agenda today. But I'm just here mostly to start with some gratitude to say thank you. Thank you for the work that all of you do and you bring to this conversation around school safety. It's really nothing more important that we do than trying to keep students in our schools stay safe. I'm a proud product of the public schools of North Carolina. Grew up in Henderson County, was very well served by the teachers I had at Atkinson Elementary, Flat Rock Junior High. It sounds how old I am. And East Henderson High School. Was a North Carolina teaching fellow, went to East Carolina and started my journey there. I've served Pitt County Schools, the Wake County Public School System, and Transylvania County Schools, and Transylvania County is where I still reside and call home. My wife is a teacher at Brevard Elementary, and I have 2 children enrolled in schools there, one at Brevard Elementary, So her and her mom get to be in class together. So that, music class, so once a week, it's not every day. And that is certainly, and my son is an 8th grader at Brevard Middle. So school safety has always been personal to me, but it certainly is because of my 2 children and my wife who are in those school buildings every single day. But also having served as a principal, as the one who's been that voice on the intercom to call a lockdown, to make those decisions and to react when things go wrong and things that happen, to deal with the challenges that our students face and bring in with them and how we can do that. In my time as central office administrator or my time with the state education agency or anything I've done in my career, keeping students safe has been job one, right? Making sure that they have the best that we can provide. And so, again, I'm thankful to be a part of the work that the department is doing. Happy to help Mrs. Fairley and her staff at the center. I see it as my role to try to eliminate barriers and empower her and her team to do what they need to do so that the students in the schools of our state benefit. Students just like you two and the other 1.5 million or so that are out there about too. So again, thank you for letting me just share a few minutes and background. And thank you for your attention to it. And I think that that's a part of being part of the solution is everybody has to be willing to talk about where we are, facing the challenges we face, but then also getting all in on solutions and how we move forward. So I look forward to the work, and I feel it's my job to support our team at the department to do their thing. It's my job to support school and district leaders across our state as they do that too. But of course, families and communities are a big piece of that as well. And so we're all involved in that. So again, thanks. Thanks for making a little time on your agenda for me. Very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbs. It's good to meet you, and thank you for being here today. And we look forward to your support of the Center for Safer Schools moving forward. For those of you that are new to the task force, part of the role of the task force is to be an advisory board to the Center for Safer Schools to give them advice on things that we can do as a state to make our schools safer, but also to make recommendations to the General Assembly and to the governor about legislative changes or budgetary changes that we think are necessary to make schools safer in the state of North Carolina. So we're really appreciative that you're here today, Dr. Gibbs, to show that support for the center. And we'll start out this morning with Karen giving us an update on what the center has been up to, and that way we can give them help be that advisory board for you guys.
Yeah, okay, so I guess, do I need to stand? I guess I do.
You're welcome to, or however you want to.
Listen, do you oppose me sitting? Does anybody oppose me sitting? You oppose me sitting? Yes. But then I'm gonna sit. Thank you, Rachel. Hilarious. So am I? Okay.
Karen, I thought you were gonna say, I'm 62, I don't want to.
I was, but I said that already, and I might need it later on. Okay. Oh, did I do that?
You just did.
Okay. Okay, there you go. All right, continuing initiatives. So I don't have a whole lot, because, we are working on some things, and probably the next meeting will get, more. But right now, we're still in the process. As you know, House Bill 605, came into fruition. We were waiting on the budget to continue the work. The center has a responsibility of providing guidance to the schools as it relates to developing and managing their threat assessment team, along with giving them guidance on the reporting to us. And so we're working through that, and we all know that the session ran a little longer, so we're a little behind, but we're making inroads, and we will be up and running, districts included, by the fall, that we will have that done. And that is also to include the peer-to-peer support, student support programs. We understand that it is imperative that peers talk with each other, because who knows youth better than youth, right? As a grandmother of a whole lot of grandchildren, they can have a whole conversation at the table and I not know what they're talking about, but they do. And so the reality is that we have to make sure that we support the peer-to-peer program and be cognizant of the fact that we don't want to overburden the young people with their peers' issues. So that's where we're working through to make sure that the peer-to-peer support group has also some support from adults to make sure that they are not overwhelmed. Then we have House Bill 142. This was and is near and dear to the superintendent's heart. When it's near and dear to her heart, it's near and dear to mine. And what we have is a bill that modifies penalties and definitions for certain offenses against students and increases that penalty for failures of administrators to report. And so, as Dr. Gibbs said, our children is the most important thing, and we want them to be in an environment that is conducive for learning and that they feel safe. And so the center was tasked with producing in legislation videos containing age-appropriate information to support the schools in talking with the children and staff as it relates to grooming. And so we have, we are in the process. We have, we're working with RTI and Capital Broadcasting. Of course, you know, I wasn't going to personally produce the video, but we have the professionals. And what we are focusing on now is 3 videos. One that is related to the middle school, one to high, and then the other one to school staff. They will be ready for the fall season. We will have the videos out before that time, but the requirements of the playing of the videos will go into that new school season. We continue with our Educating Kids and Guns and Gang initiative. It is a 7th grade initiative. It meets the 7th grade health standards. So it could be utilized in the middle school. And we are currently using SROs for that area because we also are taking the opportunity to show SROs in more of a mentoring light. We want the children to feel comfortable that they have SROs, and the center provides $33 million a year for the hiring and training of SROs. And so we want the children to feel comfortable, understand that the SROs are there to support them and be more of a mentor to them. The SROs are not a disciplinarian. And so we need to keep that in the forefront. We feel that this helps in the 7th grade because the SRO is the facilitator of this project in their schools. And if they don't have a SRO, whatever local law enforcement have, we will train them to do this project. So we have a screening and it is tomorrow night. And so what we have done is we are showing Choices, which is the movie that was created to support the EKG2 program. But we're utilizing it as it relates to the human trafficking awareness month, because even though the movie was geared towards the making choices as it relates to guns and gangs, what we know is that gangs are utilizing human trafficking to make money. And what we know is parents are telling their young girls, stay away from the 35-year-old creepy man or that, but they're not really aware that some of the perpetrators are the 16 and 17-year-old gang members in the school, right? And so he is 16, 17, and in the movie, he's a very nice looking young man, and the young women in there can be a little mesmerized. And so that is the purpose of us doing it, not so much to talk about human trafficking and all of its elements. That's for another time. This is just to tie the correlation between the grooming and how subtle it is, and how it's just the beginning of a text. It's a beginning of a sexting. It's just, and then we connect it later on with the actual human trafficking training. So it's just a screening of the movie. We are doing it simultaneously tomorrow night through all 8 regions. And those are the 8 regions, and those are the host spots. And a center staff or volunteer will be there to facilitate this. And so we're excited about that because we want to get the conversation going with parents for them to recognize it's just not the 35-year-old creepy man. It could be the 17-year-old who is drawing your child into human trafficking. And no offense if anybody is in here 35, I didn't pick you. Then we get to, we're still doing anonymous reporting. We are excited that we have 106 districts who supported, and over 150, I believe, charters, and the numbers change. But we're excited about that because this allows our children to have a trusted adult they can go to. But if for some reason they don't have it, and we always encourage them to go with that trusted adult, then there is another resource. And I've said it before, but I'll say it again for the new people. I went down, the crisis center is in Miami. And although I'm originally from Ohio, I was from the Show Me State that year. I needed to see the crisis center. I needed to see how they interacted with our children in North Carolina. They do a phenomenal job. They are more than qualified. They're compassionate. They're team-oriented. When they have a life-threatening crisis going on, the other people in the crisis center stop to support that person because there needs to be a person focused on the call. Then there needs to be people who are sending out information to the districts. I was very impressed how well the crisis center knows North Carolina districts. They were calling names of people that I know that are safety people. So that let me know that they are very much in tune with what we're doing. So it is very much money well spent. It is free to the districts, but you know that there is nothing is free. And so the General Assembly has been more than gracious to me. I can never say enough about that. And they have given us $850,000 of recurring money so that we can do this work. And we will start now looking at 4th and 5th graders to have that access. So these are the top, it says 5 tips, but I always put 6 because I always put the planned school attacks because that's almost what makes the media, right? The media loves the sensationalism. So the bullying and cyberbullying has been #1 since the inception of us doing this in November 4th, 2019. Bullying and cyberbullying has always been. You see that from July 1 through this past Friday, we had over 7,800 tips. But you see, since the inception, at the bottom, we've had over 32,000 tips, and that is from the November 4th, 2019 date. And so these are the categories: drug use, distribution, and cutting and self-harm goes back and forth, but they are all always in that top 5, and as well as suicide ideation. Yes,
You
ma'am.
said the inception date again, you said November 4th,
2019.
Thank you.
Are any of these both? Like, could it possibly be bullying and, like, are they calculated individually or like can any of them go together is, I guess, what I'm asking. In the count.
So the count is drug out by whatever the tip comes in as.
Like the
And it's,
thing.
yeah, no, it's the actual that. Now, can somebody say, let's see,
Like if I'm being bullied, there's bullying and then they're also considering self-harm, you know, like
yeah, yeah,
those things
so,
can sometimes tie together. Is
Yeah.
it being marked that way as well?
no,
Okay.
no, it is just strictly what
I feel like
that
that's
first thing is,
I feel
ma'am.
like that's like one option.
Yeah,
Okay.
now they can go back and
And
tip
the second
again.
tip.
Okay.
Yeah, does that make?
Yes,
yeah,
it does.
Okay, yes. And so when you talk about the planned school attacks, that is something that sometimes is open to interpretation because we have started a parent engagement group and we try to talk to parents about sharing social media because when they share it and then by the time the SBI or the Fusion Center gets it, it might have been shared 63 times. And so is it one planned attack or is it, this group is sharing it and this group is sharing it? And the Fusion Center is able to differentiate that. And so is the Crisis Center, right? Because they stay in tune and they triage these tips. So they reach out to the districts and see what's happening. And so these numbers are pretty accurate as far as what is being reported in based on them verifying it with the Fusion Center and or local law enforcement. So upcoming initiatives. So our training center, we are temporarily housed at Samarkand. We are looking to increase or ask for money for the continuation of the renovation of East Montgomery High School. Of course, with anything, there are things that we need to address that wasn't readily apparent when we purchased the property, but that's with anything you do. So we are looking to do that. But in the meantime, we are scheduling trainings at the training center at Samarkand. And the first trainings that are most important to us right this minute is a school risk management plan session. And so I have staff dedicated to helping the districts to identify challenges that they may have and how to improve their management plan. We have a great response as it relates to the schematics being added. We just send out reminders that if you're doing capital improvement, don't forget to send that capital improvement in for the schematics, because if you don't, then law enforcement, in case of an emergency, law enforcement would have the old schematics and they may not recognize that a whole wing is added on. So we just, every year, we're gonna send it out and say, hey, if you have schematics, if you have capital improvement updates, please update your schematics, update your plan. We have people who will work with districts to make sure that they have the best plan and that they practice their plan, right? So the center is always getting good stuff. And so we have been assigned in the ALPS. So the alternative learning programs will fall under the center. And our job will be to establish a process to provide technical assistance to the ALPS and to have monitoring and evaluation. And so we will be helping them and we are identifying staff to be out there to do that. We will be helping them because what we're trying to get is for the general public to understand that alternative learning does not always have to be a negative. It is not. It is just what it is, alternative learning, another way of learning, another environment where children who may have challenges in the traditional setting want to be. So that is our stance. That is how we're promoting it. That is what we're doing to work with the SERV. Is it SERV? SERV, yeah. SERV at UNCG and RTI. We want to do what's best for our children, but we want to move away from the misconception that alternative schools equate to bad schools. We want to say that those placements are because this is just a better way for those particular children to learn. So, of course, we have ALPS and we have discipline as it relates to policy making at the center. And so we have created new behavior codes. I'm just showing you some of them, but they are indicative of what we're getting from the districts, what the concerns the districts are having. So when the districts, not just one district, but when a few districts call and say, hey, how do we code this scenario? Then we decide whether or not a new code. And so what you see is, unfortunately, we are starting now to see more pornographic and profane material. But of course we would, because guess what children have, right? And so it's easy for them to access that. We do see possession of graphically violent material, i.e. we have some within the gaming systems with some of the games. And so you're going to see that. The reality is the more you start to identify things, the more they'll come to light. Right? So anybody ever bought a car, and as soon as you buy the car, now you're seeing that same car everywhere, and you probably never paid attention. That's the same thing. Once we start identifying things, you're gonna see a lot of it, right? Threat of harm to self and threat of harms to self or others. We are preparing as we get ready to do the threat assessment for 24-25. And so we want to have those codes in there so that we can help identify the children who have needs.
So these codes will become part of the new, the school violence and crime report that's released each year?
They are discipline codes that will be able to be coded into, yes, the Power School. Now, will we list each one of them? They will probably be categorized because they will be under drugs or whatever. So they're not, they may not have part of it. Yeah.
Karen, may I ask a question? Because I was gonna ask you, are these considered discipline codes? So you answered that question. So that leads me to, why would we categorize threat to self, suicide as a discipline code versus it being an action item to then refer that student to appropriate behavior adversary?
So it's really to be able to utilize it and pull it from the Power School. And so that's how it's kind of set up. I'm not real familiar with Power School to that degree. That's a Amy Powell moment, but that's just to not, what you will see in the report would be not that that is a discipline, but it is a behavior code because we will have behavioral threat assessment. So it'll just be to identify that that particular child may need to have a threat assessment done.
So it does not imply that there will be a disciplinary consequence issued for that. That is just kind of contained within that reporting. So it's not necessarily saying this person was suspended as a result or not, depending on the circumstances. A lot of local context and their local policies will guide that.
Yeah, I definitely understand coding so we can track the different types of behavior. But I do think language is important. So if we say it's a disciplinary code, then that could create a barrier to access for students to want to report those feelings of suicidal ideation so that we can get them the appropriate help. So that's why I asked for students and parents as well.
Yeah, and so we call them a behavior code overall, but then there are some on there that are discipline codes, right? Yeah.
And so if it's flagged, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's flagged in Power School, wouldn't that mean that it was considered a major offense within the regular schooling day, or it's just, okay, okay.
And then these are just other things, you know, the vaping, we're seeing a lot of that, and a lot of, grant applications called for, devices to identify vaping in the school. Oh, somebody said something? Oh, no. All right. So anyways, I am continuing my school tours. I do them every year for the last few years, and schools ask me to come. I don't barge in on them. I send it out, and if they want me to come, I come, and I come to see a couple of things. I don't go to spy on them. I come to see what they want me to see, the improvements that they have done, what they've utilized the grant monies for, what they may in fact want to do in the future. It also allows me the opportunity to go back to the General Assembly and tell them what I'm actually seeing, that this is not just something somebody told me, that I've actually been out. So I make it my business to go to the west when it's a little warmer, and then now I'll go to the east when it's a little colder. And so just making sure that I go through all of the regions, as many schools as I can based on my schedule, and I go to both districts and charter. And what I ask is that I be able to meet with an administrator, the safety person, because that's usually who invites me, and a group of students. Because I want to hear what the students have to say as it relates to how they feel in school and how safe they feel and what challenges they may have. And so that's what you see on the right, a group of students that we met with, and they were delightful. And guess what? They tell you the truth. And they tell you it in such a way that it helps you to make other decisions based on what you hear from them. So that is very something I look forward to.
A question regarding that.
Yes.
So for elementaries, because I do work at an elementary, what, could you just share briefly what a visit at an elementary school is like? Because I know some of the services that we do talk about is sometimes not offered on the elementary level.
Yeah. So I've been to a few elementaries in the last couple of tours. And so I, meet with the safety people, the administrators. And then when I meet with the students, they are more in tune than what we think. And they talk about the bullying issues, if they feel like they've been bullied. They talk about, they see teachers propping the door open. They tell it all. I mean, and it's a little uncomfortable if the teacher happened to be in the room. But they express that they feel safe. And if they don't, they say that, I like this school, but I would feel safe if this wasn't going on. And it's usually, I'm going to say 85 to 90% is bullying. It's bullying that the elementary children are having challenges with. It's the bullying. Yeah.
So one thing, like a recent example just before Thanksgiving that I would say, and now you referenced it earlier, but I'll name it, Robbinsville Elementary and Graham County Schools, one of those peer-to-peer groups in the elementary, in the upper grades, and working with those students about, talking with their peers, but then also went to know like, oh, we need to refer, we need to go to so-and-so, our counselor to move forward on some things because this is too much for me, right? And helping with that. So that was a great, just one tangible example of kind of that question.
And may I ask too, do the kids often, or even the school also talk about, and I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, like the preventative things that are happening necessarily in the classroom, whether it's like the use of restorative practice, the use of peer mediation, the use of second step, where the kids, I taught fourth grade, y'all, stop, name your feeling and calm down, like, and how to report and how to be assertive in your tone and, do they talk about those things as well that kind of help the preventative measures before we get into?
Mostly in the middle school. I don't hear a lot in the elementary school. And the school gets to pick what the class is. I don't tell them which class to pick.
So do we think that that could be something that moving forward could also be considered possibly as you do the work of like thinking about what are preventative measures as early as possible that we can support kids in, I know I'm not trying to give you nothing extra to do.
Yeah,
This is a lot. But I don't mind, I'm sure, I know, I got some friends, we got some elementary school teachers that can talk a lot about like, that regulation piece too is a piece of like children developing and.
What I'm gonna say is get with that lady back there and let's get on the books and talk about that, okay? Yeah, no, because if it gets too much, I'm passing it on to my boss. Go ahead.
Yeah, he got it.
Yeah, he got it.
I had a question, and this may not be as much in elementary or maybe so, but with the cyberbullying, bullying, how much are you hearing about from like social media, from what you're hearing from students?
A ton, a just overwhelming ton, and you can't keep up. It's the Facebook, it's the TikTok, it's the Instagram.
X.
Yeah, not too much with the X. That's for the old people.
We have a couple of student representatives here. I mean, I would love to hear their perspective on that instead.
Yeah.
I would defer to whoever.
You said that they select which class you go to. I think it would be interesting if the school announced you're coming, to the parents and let parents and children also self-select, like, hey, I like to meet with Miss Fairley when she comes. Because, when we want to represent our school well, we're always going to pick the most well-behaved class, for that whoever's coming to visit. And sometimes it's the one that's not well-behaved that's going to tell you what's really going down. And sometimes the one that's pinged as the school problem or the behavior problem will tell you they view me as a problem, but this is why I act the way I do. Okay. So I think it'll be interesting for people to be able to, for parents and students to be empowered to know that they could speak to somebody like you and tell the truth about what's going on and not only be selected by the administration of who you get to speak to.
Well, and I agree with that, but I also know in 5 years of doing regional support work in the field, that one of the ways you do that is you continue to build a relationship. And so you get beyond this sort of like cultivated group because they see you. So you could ask the superintendent of Graham County Schools, which is very, very far from here.
Yeah.
You've never been there, but you could ask, you have, yes. Ms. Floyd has been most everywhere, but you could ask like, well, he's one of us, he's part of the family. So you have to start to build those relationships. I know Ms. Fairley and others in the department are continuing to try to do that. But I think, yes, you always want to try to get to the real conversations and to hear it. And I do think that we have an interest in trying to do that. And that comes with being willing to come back and listen more. We're definitely working.
And having supports when you hear it, right?
And that's funny because that is Graham's school right there.
Well, I recognize them.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. So, and I've been there twice. They've asked me twice. So, okay, because I know I'm sorry. Did you know?
I thought I'll wait till you're finished.
Oh, I'm almost.
Yeah.
So we have our Back to School Safety Summit. It's going to be July 29th through August 2nd. We're adding a component in. We're adding a parent component, but we are also adding a student engagement component. That's why it's so long. That was just pictures from last year, but our intent is to be in Morehead City for this one. And that is it. So
A couple of areas that were raised by your presentation, thank you for it. First, when you're talking about making sure plans, if there's any renovations going on in schools, the plans for the school center.
Updated.
Yes. There is a lot of construction going on around the state right now. There's a lot of needs for construction in schools. There's an ongoing discussion that's not well resolved, in my view, at this point, that I think it might be helpful if we had really something on one of our upcoming programs. If you look at people who are, let's just say, consultants in school safety, they will say, I want as few exit points in the school or entrance points as possible. If you talk to fire marshals and other public building personnel, they'll say we need significant numbers of exits, particularly in elementary schools where we have young children who may, be harder to get to exit the building. So there's a significant differences of viewpoint, even within codes, there are actually significant differences of viewpoint. At DPI, there's a small and dedicated staff who review plans for schools. And then there are people out there who have differing viewpoints about this. And I don't think it'd be a harmful thing to have a discussion about, how we talk about or think about what's the best equation, what's the best proposal or approach to get there on this ingress and egress issue, among others. That's the first thing that was raised. The second thing, because I don't think there's any clear authority, that's the reason I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a, Lynn Harvey.
I was gonna say, let's tag her in,
Yeah.
and maybe she could.
Yeah.
I think it's a school safety task
Sure,
force issue.
but working
So,
with,
yeah.
working with her, I mean, you're right. David and that staff is very dedicated to Lynn's perspective.
So it's
And-
great
and
to
just
have
for
plans, but
clarity-
you want the things
Yeah,
to be good in the
Right,
first place.
but-
We already have 100-year-old schools
Yeah.
that are not the way you design.
yes, right. And just for clarity, my staff is just focused on making sure they get in the system, the shrimp system.
I understand. Uniquely, I'm in a position to understand. That being said, I think it's still under the purview of this
Yeah.
committee to be concerned about
Yeah.
that. So, or task force. Second one is the alternative learning programs in schools. You said were being brought under the center, and I don't know what brought under means in this context. What do you mean? by
Well,
that?
that means that the center has the responsibility of ensuring that they are consistent in how they're set up and helping them provide that technical assistance to set up, identifying resources to support them, and then helping with the monitoring and evaluation, because we have some that are schools and then we have some that are programs. And we're just trying to bring consistency. That's all. So if it's a program in a school, there's consistency. If it's an actual school, then it's consistency.
So how many schools are there in the state that would fall under this category?
They gave this to me less than 3 weeks ago, so I have no clue. But I will.
Well, we would have to follow that up. So that's been an issue with, so I think Dr. Laurie Morrow has been temporarily working with Dr. Jordan on that. And so we're, in looking for a longer term solution, I think it was identified that the center had a staff ability to take that on. And that was a decision made, I guess, in December, November.
That was actually my next question. Do we actually have educators who have experience in that group, with that group of students within the center, or we?
So that'll be a building process to work through, because again, we've had less than one person devoted to that in Dr. Morrow in her short stint this year. And so really looking for a better long-term, and then we'll be able to build that out. We've even had some beginning conversations, but this is brand new. And so we're gonna get to the point where and then we're working with Serve already this year to help kind of get those things going, because that's been an area where, we have a good improvement opportunity as an agency to provide support to those alternative school principals or program leaders across the state. That has been an area where I think we can help that community of practice grow together.
One led to the last question I had, which is what's the relationship with the local schools? My understanding is ultimately local schools have control over those schools and or programs.
I think ours is gonna be a support and in gathering the community of practice, more of the professional learning community approach. It's not necessarily a regulatory thing. They do have to, each district has to have some sort of either alternative learning program or school. And they choose how that works, and especially in small rural environments, there's often programs within a school instead of a standalone school. But I think we envision a way of just being another support, opportunity to help them and to gather that community of practice. Because in most of those places, especially small rural, it's one alternative school principal or one program leader and building a community of practice across the state. It's I think our goal in our very, very tentative conversations.
Yes, and so when I say under, it's just the responsibility to I feel the responsibility has been given to just bring consistency and support, whether it's a program, whether it's a school in itself. And so my thing is that right now, interacting with Serve and RTI to help develop what that looks like. So it's just consistent.
Thank you.
Other questions for Karen on her presentation? I just, the old Center for the Prevention of School Violence, and we went out and looked at all of the programs across the state. And it varied tremendously from location to location. And I remember, because back then it was line item 69, at-risk funding that went to each of the school districts that funded those programs. And we went to programs that were for academically gifted kids, and they said they were at risk because they were far above the other kids in the school district. And so I would just encourage, as you're going through the process, to really think through how do we make sure that we're truly addressing the kids that are at risk of being suspended or dropping out of school. Because in my work in juvenile justice, I can tell you the number one risk factor of a child getting arrested in the community is that they're out of school. And so if we can encourage and try to keep those kids in school, and I know a lot of what we've talked about with the discipline and those types of things is holding kids accountable. There's a way to hold kids accountable and teach discipline while at the same time not kicking them out of the school. And making sure that they lose that educational right that they have. But ultimately, that's good for all of us in our communities across the state. It makes us a safer state by making sure that kids are being served in those schools. So,
And that has always, I mean,
Yeah,
with me and Dr. Gibbs talking, that has always been the intent. We are trying to do, everything the center does is trying to bring consistency, so we are all saying the same thing at the same time.
Well, to footnote that, in the various, there are districts that have alternative schools for kids that are long-term suspended.
Yeah.
They're long-term suspended out of their school, alternative school, because the district is making that available. There are other districts that don't do that, and that's a big issue in the places where they don't do that for the reasons you just said, Billy.
And as an educator, I truly appreciate how you mentioned that it's really important for the consistency, but also just the language change in general. When I think about an alternative school, like and even schools that I've visited, one of my beginning teacher of the year, Emily Higdon from Macon County, she taught at an alternative school. And the first thing she said was like, well, Ms. Floyd, when they walk into my classroom, they're already feeling rejected, dismissed. And that is that's a real feeling. And so how can someone that feels rejected and dismissed feel safe? I'm not gonna feel safe if you reject me and dismiss me. And so I really appreciate you sharing, we really have to do a very big push of changing the language and saying that this is just a different space for learning to occur. And we're gonna meet you right where you are. That's personalized instruction, that's personalized care, that's personalized safety. So thank you for saying that.
Well, and I know that I know you have other agenda items, but to Ms. Floyd's point, I'm glad you gave me a great inspiration there, but
I do
that school, but the schools you're referencing in Macon County, Union Academy, actually even changed their name this year to Bartram Academy, because they had found that they had really developed such respect in the community for treating it, doing it right.
Yes.
For helping people to feel like, I want to be here, this is my choice. And then ultimately, they decided, as part of their growth journey, they're like, we're even going to change the name. Because we feel like, and Bartram is a known explorer of Western North Carolina, there's a whole story on that, but about the exploration and movement. So that's an inspiring story, and they've done a good work there. And so we want to try to be able to amplify and help cross-pollinate those things. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say, Billy, I like what Dr. Gibbs and Karen is doing, because from a social work perspective, I see there's some kids that are referred to our alternative school and parents don't even know.
Yeah.
And then there's some kids that they say, okay, we've got to require 3 letters. We need a letter from the counselor, the social worker, the teacher. And then you've got some kids you just place there. So to have some consistency to say, this is the criteria set out for you to go to alternative school, and just not somebody that a teacher doesn't want in the class because they're tired of looking at them. They're a low score, and hey, we can put them over at the alternative school because that's not gonna look good on their report at the end of the year. So to have that consistency where there's a packet that says, these are the things you have to meet in order for a child to be referred. That's what I see from a social work perspective. It's different ways, all kind of ways of a child being referred, but it's not the same as everybody else. So,
And let me just say one thing, and I have to say this. Whatever DPI and the center does, and unless it's law, you know, districts are autonomous and we just make the recommendation what we feel like would help with that. And they are by their rights able to say yay or nay.
Yes.
And so I just want to make sure that people know that the center is just dropping down a hammer and saying this is what has to be done. That is not how it works. They are autonomous and they can make, now if it's a law, it's a law.
Yeah.
But if not, then.
But there's someone looking, so I like that.
Right.
With good examples.
Yeah, good examples.
Any other questions for Karen? I do want to introduce Sheriff Rogers, who came in. You want to introduce yourself real quick? Yeah.
I do apologize for running behind. I'm Sheriff Rogers from Guilford County, and I'm part of this great organization, this team, so I look forward. I came in on the back end of your presentation, but hearing the remarks and the summaries from what you have said from other people, I can tell it was good. And actually, it took me back to some history back when I was in school, and it was titled an at-risk kid. And to hear the difference in changing the language, how important that is in this day and time of society. So it is good to be sitting here and to listen and to be able to reflect back from when once I was a child. And here I am now sitting as a sheriff of Guilford County and get a chance to listen to how things need to be changed in today's society. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff. Great job. Thanks, Karen. All right, so I'm going to give a quick update on the NC Safe campaign, which I told y'all a little bit about last time. And I know that I went to Sheriff Rogers' district when we were kicking this off in his county. And just want to give you a quick update on that and walk you through it. So NC Safe is the Secure All Firearms Effectively campaign. And the reason why we've been trying to do this is that we've seen an uptick in the number of juveniles that are possessing guns, not only in the community, but also on school campuses. And so we're trying to figure out how do we limit that access to firearms among our young people. And so it's not just looking at it for young people, but that's where we're focused today. We also want to do this to prevent suicide among veterans and also access in the community to criminals to firearms that they can get access to. So. Okay, so the campaign itself has four major components that we're doing across the state of North Carolina right now. The first is a statewide campaign, a public awareness campaign about safe storage that's being done. This is being done through social media. It's being done through the actual media, paid media that we're doing across the state of North Carolina. And we're also doing distribution of gun locks. We've already given out 25,000 gun locks across the state of North Carolina. We just ordered another 25,000 that just came in. And we'll be distributing those across the state. Right now, we are giving them to all the local health departments because we know that some people are concerned about going to law enforcement to get their gun locked. So we wanted to establish other ways that they could get those. We went to most of the law enforcement agencies in the first round and gave them gun locks. And so they're providing them in their local communities to their local folks across the state. We've done a safe storage map. This is a map that identifies locations that if you are a gun owner, and you had the grandkids coming over, and you don't have a safe way to store that firearm in your house, it would give you an opportunity to safely store that firearm outside of your home. And that map identifies those locations across the state. We're promoting the local firearm safety teams across the state of North Carolina. We have 8 of them already established. We had 13 additional counties that are now joined up. They're starting firearm safety teams in their local communities. And this is to help spread the message about safe storage in those local communities across the state of North Carolina. We're also doing the CALM training, which is counseling people about lethal means. And so this would be for someone that may have come to the identification of mental health, that this individual is suicidal. How do you counsel the people in the household about what to do in those situations? How do you make sure that the firearms are safely stored, but also any other mechanism that could be used for suicide in that household? And so all of these components are part of the campaign. And so why are we looking at this specifically? You can see the numbers here. We've seen a steady increase in the number of child deaths related to firearm-related injuries. 213% increase since 2012 in the state of North Carolina. So we're the red line there. The blue line is the national average or the national rate, and we're the red line. And so we are almost double the national rate right now in child-related deaths due to firearms. And so something needs to be done, y'all. You're talking about in the last 6 years, over 600 kids that have been killed by firearm-related deaths. That's suicide and homicides. And so how do we deal with these numbers? How do we bring down these numbers? It's not just the kids that get killed, though. We also have lots of kids that are going to our emergency rooms that end up not dying. But think about the trauma that those kids face for the rest of their lives because of that firearm-related injury that they've suffered. So we did looked at the youth risk behavior survey that was done last year. And this is the information that we got from that. 1/3 of all high school students told us that within an hour, they could get access to a firearm that is loaded. So within an hour, 1/3 of all high school students in the state of North Carolina said that they could get access to a firearm that is loaded. And so that is obviously very concerning. And obviously something that we want to look at. How do we restrict that access a little bit more to this population so that we can bring down that overall percentage? And this shows you the firearm-related incidents related to juveniles. So the dark blue bar there is overall the number of juvenile complaints that have come in the state of North Carolina. The light blue part shows you the portion of those complaints that are firearm-related. And you can see that we've grown from about 3% of all juvenile complaints involving a firearm 4 years ago to last year, almost 14%, 13% of all juvenile complaints that came in were firearm-related. That most common ones are possession of a firearm by a minor, possession of a firearm on a school campus. And so these are extremely serious events because anytime that a young person has a firearm, young people's brains are not fully developed. They don't make the best decision. And you've just given an impulsive person that doesn't make the best decisions a very lethal means of way of hurting themselves or other people. And so that's why we're really focused on this, is that we continue to see this upward trend. I just had our staff pull the numbers for the actual calendar year that just ended, and unfortunately the trend continued. We went from 13% to 14% last year, and overall there was about a 9% overall increase in firearm-related incidents among juveniles in the state of North Carolina. And so there's obviously something more that we need to do. That's why the EKG program that Karen was just talking about is so extremely important. Young people need to understand that this is not a video game. You shoot somebody, they ain't coming back alive. And that there's real consequences to those behaviors. So we did get some funding in the first year to do this, and then the second year we are actually using, you probably heard about last year, Congress actually passed a gun safety legislation for the first time in about 20 years. It was a bipartisan act. In fact, Senator Tillis from our state was one of the major sponsors in the Senate of that bill. And that money, there was money that was associated with that bill that came to the state of North Carolina. And so we are using part of those dollars right now to continue the statewide campaign moving forward. In the upcoming legislative session, we are going to ask for continued funding for the school safety or for the gun safety campaign to continue. But right now, we're using those dollars to purchase the gun locks, to do the advertising, to do bus wraps, to do billboards. Hopefully, you've seen some of it in your community. If not, hopefully you'll see some more of it soon. This year, we're really going to focus on three things: access to firearms and vehicles. That's what we're seeing across the state of North Carolina. Last year, 60% of firearms that were illegally taken were taken from vehicles. In those situations, we saw 62% of those were stolen from a car that was not even locked. All right, so the gun was typically on the front seat of the car, and the car itself was not locked, and so that is just an easy target. I tell people all the time, it's your stuff. Why do you let people steal it? You wouldn't put $1,000 on the front seat of your car and leave it unlocked. So why do you leave a $1,000 gun sitting on the front seat of your car and allow somebody to steal it and allow that to be sold on the street and get into the hands of criminals? And so we are looking for additional funding from the legislator moving forward, and that would also to help us fund things like the safe storage map. We're working with Appalachian State right now on a plan to put safes in gun stores that people can take those guns to and hold them if they want to take them out of the house because of suicidal threats that are going on, or because, like I said, the grandkids are coming. So working with them right now on trying to figure out how that works. And we've had really great response. This is not a one side of the aisle issue. This is very bipartisan. We're working with the firearm licensed dealers across the state of North Carolina. They're putting up the posters now. They're just helping us distribute the locks. We're also working with the shooting ranges where people go to actually shoot guns. And because I keep telling people, it doesn't do me any good to have a great campaign that's only focused on people that don't have guns. This has got to be a campaign focused on people that have guns if we want them to lock them up. And so we're really trying to make sure that we're hitting that group of folks in the advertising that we're doing on the campaign. So the campaign itself, we're using evidence-based perspectives on how to do this. What we have seen from the research is that public health campaigns are successful in changing behavior. It takes time. You've been around for a long time. You've heard click or ticket for a long time, right? That started in the 80s. We didn't change all people's behaviors until the 2000s, and there's still some people that are getting that ticket for not locking or putting their safety belt in, right? But we have changed behavior over time. Same thing with smoking. If you go back and look at, especially in the state of North Carolina, when I went to school, you could still smoke on school campus. They had a smoking area on school campus that you could go to. Just think about how we've changed over the decades in our perspectives, and that's because of public health campaigns that are truly focused on these issues moving forward. And so that's what we're trying to do. We need a dedicated long-term campaign to make this happen if we want to truly change behavior and change that behavior for a long time moving forward. So we're trying to, as I said, we're trying to expand the campaign to focus on those vehicles, suicide prevention in the next year also. And so those areas that we really find that are areas that we want to target. And for example, putting up on parking garages in communities across the state to make sure that if you have a firearm with you, that firearm is secured or you take it with you. So we're looking at trying to target those actual parking garages or things like the Panther Stadium parking, because that's where we find a lot of those guns are stolen, or at big athletic events or big entertainment events. People go around and pop all the cars in that area and try to steal those firearms. And so really focusing on those areas that we think we can make the biggest difference in trying to reduce the access to these firearms. And I'm sure Sheriff Rogers would tell you, a lot of the sheriffs across the state tell me, you would not believe how many firearms are being taken off of people, illegal firearms that are being taken off of people across the state of North Carolina, evidence lockers, and they're having to actually rent additional storage at law enforcement agencies all across the state to store all these firearms in that they're taking off of people that are illegally stolen from somewhere else. And so making sure that we can reduce that access is extremely important. This kind of shows you some of the data as far as the campaign itself. And how many people we've reached with it. And so this is just gives you the monthly breakdown and the yearly breakdown of that. So we are reaching quite a few people through it. We've got posters that teach everybody from pediatricians, the social workers, how to have this conversation with parents. In fact, this weekend I'm presenting at the Pediatrics Association's conference. And we're giving out blocks to all the pediatricians that attend those conferences. So during those well visits with parents, they can have the conversation about locking up that firearm. But they also have posters and resources that are available on the website that tell parents, if your kid's going to go spend the night at another kid's house, how do you have the conversation with those parents about it? If you have a firearm in your house, is locked up. That's an uncomfortable conversation for parents to have, but it's one that is very important as a parent that you do have. And so it gives them, parents and our healthcare professionals, advice about how to have those conversations. Here's the website for NC Safe. We want to work more with schools, and we're trying to figure out how to, I know some of the school districts are actually adding it to their city codes of conduct about having the conversation with parents about safely storing firearms in their households. And so I think Wake County added something to their code of conduct this year about it, their student handbook. We're looking to go to more school districts and have those conversations so they can add that conversation to their student handbooks also. And we're completely open to other ideas that you all think might work on this conversation across the state of North Carolina. But we think we are training school resource officers right now to have those conversations at PTA meetings. And we've given them an actual PowerPoint that they can do. It's a 15-minute PowerPoint, so it's not really long, but it has the conversation so that they can do that at every PTA meeting across the state that they attend. But we're looking for other ideas. If you've got some ideas, we're open to those. We just know that this is a problem. I mean, 600 kids are dying from this. It's something that we've got to address and have. We all know that when a firearm comes on a school campus, it terrorizes the whole campus. The kids, the staff, the parents, the administration, everybody. And it stops the learning process. I was down in Charlotte last week and met with their chief of police for their school district. And he said that they've gone from having 78 guns come on school campus last year to 3 this year. The big difference is that they put in place metal detectors at each of their doors in the middle schools and high schools. And they've seen that be a very effective technique. I'm not saying that's the right technique for everybody, but we've got to look at the things that you were talking about earlier, the physical security issues that we were talking about earlier. How do we limit those access points for those guns to come onto the school campus to begin with? You can learn more about it by ncsafe.org, and I'll be glad to take any questions. Yes, ma'am.
When you work with the school district, you said do you solely work with the officers of the district?
No, we've partnered with the NCPTA, and so we're trying to work through the PTA to get the message out to parents and through the PTAs. But there are materials there that are for social workers and for school counselors to have the conversation too.
Have you talked with family or community engagement departments of districts as well?
We have not. So
Because
that's
sometimes they offer course offerings to parents and things like that. So if a district has like a family and community engagement,
Okay.
That is engaging the community, and letting them know about other things happening across the state. That's just a thought.
Writing it down. Excellent. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank y'all. So next up, we've got Sharon Bell from the Department of Health and Human Services that's going to talk to us a little bit about the youth mental health first aid. And excited about this presentation. This is something that in the Department of Public Safety, we started training all our juvenile justice staff members on mental health first aid for kids. And so I think it's something that we really need to look at for school personnel, more school personnel across the state. And so, Sharon.
Yes, thank you for having me. Okay to be up here?
Absolutely.
A good time? Okay, great. Thank you all for having me. As y'all heard, I am with the Division of Child and Family Wellbeing, which is one of the divisions under DHHS. We were very excited when, I guess maybe a little more than a year ago, we received a call from the governor's office saying, hey, we see that you all have an interest in doing youth and teen mental health first aid, and we'd like to talk to you about targeting schools specifically with that, and helped us with identifying some funds to get that work off the ground. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that today. I am not the expert on youth and teen mental health first aid. Our experts are actually our contractors through RBH Wellness, or Ruby Brown Herring Wellness, and UNC Chapel Hill School of Social Work Behavioral Health Springboard. But they are out in the community doing youth and teen mental health first aid trainings today. So I will do my best to shed good light on the work that they are doing and do my best to answer your questions, and anything I can, I'll make sure that you can get in touch with them. All right, so what are we doing? We are focusing on both teen and youth mental health first aid. Youth mental health first aid is a curriculum for adults that work with youth ages 12 to 18. Helps them to identify behavioral health challenges, symptoms, how to intervene, what to say, and how to respond in those situations. And then the department has done some training and focus on youth mental health first aid, but has not previously focused on the teen component. So this is new this go round. Teen is an actual program for youth. It teaches them how to identify challenges and symptoms that their peers might be experiencing, how to, with the help and support of trained adult mental health first aid staff, how to provide support in those situations. A little bit about, I'm not going to go through all of that. We share some of this with the different groups that we go out with, but this is just a little bit about what we're doing. Biggest things for y'all to know is we decided early on this could not be a one-size-fits-all sort of approach, particularly with our school districts that we wanted to focus on. We do have flexibility to also work with child serving organizations, but our first primary focus is schools, public school districts, charter schools, as well as private schools. And we knew that some schools would really want to engage in kind of a learning collaborative type approach. Other schools have been doing youth mental health first aid for a long period of time, but maybe they just need access to more trained trainers for their school as they've had turnover. So we've really tried to put together a number of different options so that there's a way for any school and any child serving organization to plug in a way that makes sense for them and their staff and their organization. To date, actually as of this Friday, we will have achieved our first goal, which is to train 100 new youth mental health first aid instructors. So our last cohort, well, not our last, we'll actually continue to do that over the next several months, but we will have achieved that goal at the end of this week by training 100 new youth mental health first aid instructors. A lot of those are in public school settings. And then also in terms of the youth or the teen mental health first aid as schools, and actually let me go on to that, to this slide. So as schools train a certain amount of their staff in youth mental health first aid, they'll have an option to also engage in teen mental health first aid. But they first have to show a commitment to getting a lot of their staff trained, to implementing the activities around youth mental health first aid. And then we'll invite them to be part of a teen mental health first aid to train some of their teens. We're really, really excited about this, and the teens that have so far been identified are really looking forward to the opportunity to work with peers in their school, but they're also going to have an opportunity to work with teens that are going through this in other school districts. And we're actually going to be providing ongoing training for them throughout the spring semester, even once they complete their teen certification course. We'll be bringing them back together for some additional training and actually sending them all to UNC Wilmington for several days over the summer to come together and talk about how we can continue this initiative and what they've learned and what we can learn from them. So some really exciting things happening there. Those schools that do want a more intensive approach, we are offering them the option to participate in a couple of different cohorts with some additional trainings and supports. One will focus on mental health, restorative justice, and equity. And so they'll receive, in addition to the youth mental health first aid curriculum and completing that certification, and for any that want to be trainers, completing the train the trainer certification, we'll also offer some additional trainings that help connect the behavioral health challenges that they're seeing in their students to some of these areas of interest. And then we also are going to do a group with some of our rural communities and our tribal communities as well, focusing on the unique needs and particular approaches and challenges that they might be experiencing in those communities. So all of these things will be happening over the course of this spring. These are not all of the schools that have participated, but these are some of the schools and community organizations that have invited us in to host some community-wide events. As I said, we have a lot of other schools, Wake County schools you don't see on here, Orange County schools, Guilford County schools. They're engaged with us on the train the trainer component only because this is something that they've done historically in their school district. But these are districts that are also wanting to engage their larger community as well. And then we're also working with a number of child serving organizations. A couple of them are MCOs that want to have train the trainers so that they can continue to train new people in school settings and in other locations in both of these models, but also the Alliance of YMCAs. We had the YMCAs reached out and said, hey, we're seeing a lot of these same things that schools are seeing. You know, we're seeing the same things in our after school programs and our sports programs and have concerns about the growing concerns about youth and teen mental health first aid challenge or youth and teen behavioral health challenges. And so we have YMCAs across the state that are participating as well. Let's see. And then just a couple of things. Would love to have an opportunity for folks to get involved. Hopefully you'll get these slides later, so you'll have links to all of the resources, and there's different links on here that you can follow to join any of the different groups. If you want to become a trainer, if you want to share it with your school, your child's school, any youth serving organizations that you're engaged with, please do so. We'll be continuing these efforts through the spring or through the summer months, and then we're requesting additional funding to continue this into next school year as well. So I'll pause there and I'll see what questions folks have for me. Yeah.
I just want to let you know that Ruby and I have already been talking for the Center for Safer Schools.
Good.
And so we are going, my program staff will be trained.
Great.
I'm already trained in all three.
Okay,
So
wonderful.
I'm not gonna.
Maybe you can lead some of this.
I do it so that I can ask other people.
Yeah,
to do it.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
So definitely, we've already had that conversation about the youth,
Wonderful.
and we are going to utilize the teen mental health as one of the peer-to-peer support
Awesome.
in HB 605. Yeah.
Wonderful. So happy to hear that. And you are definitely connected to the right person, I'm sure you know. She would have loved to have been here today. She immediately said yes when I told her about this opportunity. And then she came back and she said, Sharon, I forgot. We have a cohort training that day. And so she wasn't able to be here, but that you are working with the right person for sure. And thank you for doing that. Yeah.
But for the teen one, what age does that start at, that they could be actually?
I think it's 15.
15, okay.
I think it's 10th, 11th, 12th.
Yeah.
And so all of the programming, that's what I was gonna ask too, was for the grade level is 10. It was just for 10th grade?
For the overall definition
For the
for
youth.
youth starts at 12.
12.
So that's not training for the youth, but for adults working with youth ages beginning 12 and up.
Okay.
And then for the teen, it's for teens 15. Yes, sir.
So for the teen one, it says that it starts at age like 15 and 10th grade. Why not put 9th grade in there too?
Well, unfortunately, we don't get to decide all of those things. This is a international really model. And so they kind of established the criteria and probably have done that through different research and that sort of thing. But I do think that there is conversation at a school, particularly if this is something that we're able to continue on, starting to flag and identify potential children as, as they're entering high school, even if they're not quite old enough to participate, for those that we can engage the next time, so that we already have those folks flagged. And just one other thing on the teen piece that we've been working with schools around too, in addition to some of the trainings and stuff like that I talked about. For those high school seniors, most of the schools, actually I think all of them have agreed to do this. When you go to a high school graduation, you get the pamphlet with all of the names and the different designations, honor society and beta clubs and whatever. They've all agreed to flag and identify those youth that have engaged in teen mental health first aid and made a commitment during the course of their senior year or throughout their high school career, to have them identified there, and also courts for graduation. And so we've been able to secure those for them. So we really want to continue to build on that. And part of that is identifying, potential candidates for this even before they hit that required age. It's a great question. What else?
I will say I really appreciated the differentiation when you had the two. Can you go back to the slide? I didn't have a slide, and I just loved.
Oh, the definitions?
No, you can go back to the keep going when you had like the tribal.
Oh, yes, right there.
I appreciate this distinguishment of like, especially when you describe like, with tribal and rural communities, like, there has to be some kind of intentional and like that adding that cultural lens is really important. And I think that that's just it just brought me joy. So thank you so much
Yeah.
for putting that in the forefront of the work. Like you're not doing the work for real if you're not being honest with who you're talking to,
Yeah.
right? And actually knowing who people are.
No, thank you. We were really excited about that too. Both all of these options were things that we were able to take advantage of through the National Council, which establishes and promotes this curriculum and trains trainers in it. And so they've really looked for ways to support implementation across various states, and we're really excited to be able to have the funding to add those kind of additional components for those exact reasons.
And is it district leadership that is in the cohort? Like my question is, how does it touch the classroom?
Yeah, I think it varies. That would actually be a great question for Ruby. I think that varies a little bit district to district and who they're identifying as their kind of key leadership for implementation. But I think I understand kind of where you're going. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, one thing that impressed me about it is the community partnerships. As a school counselor, I sat through this training that was offered through a church who had a grant. And because of the work that we're doing with youth, it's good for those who don't have the training that I have to be able to know signs and the language to use. And I thought it was very comprehensive, it's very good. And I was just pleased to see the partnerships because we know with the work that we're doing in the schools, there's not enough, we were talking before, not enough counselors, not enough social workers. But as we are making partners with different community agencies, then we extend our reach to where students are in the communities. And I thought this was great to have an instructor come in for a group. And we were able to get in that training because it would be quite cost prohibitive to have done it, and that was a great way to participate.
Yeah.
So I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, we were really excited when the governor's office agreed to allow us to expand this and to touch on those community serving organizations. And honestly, not that schools weren't excited, they were, and they actually responded quicker and more positively than maybe we thought they would at the outset. But the community organizations, even before we had gotten an okay to extend it to community organizations, we were getting lots of calls from community organizations that wanted to engage, either to send staff to train their trainer events or just bring us in to host a training on their behalf. And so it's been great to be able to do that. Any other questions I can answer?
So,
Yeah.
so what can I contact you, to do some training with some of my deputies?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think not me. Well, you can contact me, but I don't know the answers. But yeah, Ruby and Sabrina, our staff at UNC, all of their contact information is included in here, and you're absolutely welcome to reach out to me too. We'll make sure that we get you connected to the right folks to get that set up. But absolutely, we would be happy to support you and your officers in that as well. Hey, Rachel.
I just wanted to add something. So Sharon and I are colleagues at DCFW, and we were on a meeting. We're on so many meetings, I can't remember which one. But Ruby was actually presenting at that meeting, and she talked about, so we were doing mental health first aid at the department years ago. And I think we started in 2015 and did a lot of work with youth mental health first aid. And with this new initiative, she talked about how some counties are picking up on it. Counties that we had conversations with years ago that were kind of hesitant for different reasons. A lot of it was about time. It wasn't about money because we were providing it. But it was about time and about, well, what does that mean for teachers and others in terms of added responsibility and all of those things. And so fast forward now, as Sharon stated, people are calling and reaching out saying, yes, we want this. And so I think I just wanted to highlight that the work that we're doing and the consistency in which we're doing is making a difference in terms of people wanting to get this training because they know that it's important. So I just wanted to highlight that as well.
That goes back to what Billy was saying. It takes years to finally see results from what you're trying to implement.
Yeah, we were really apprehensive at first because we heard, a lot of the feedback from prior years implementation. We, we're in conversation with DPI and certainly know the challenges that school personnel, have in terms of juggling so much. And so we were really trying to think about how can we be sensitive to that. And, some are going to want more support. Some are going to just want to get the training and start doing it. And so that was really critical and I think really helped us kind of get to that spot where we actually started getting outreaches from some of those districts. We didn't have to go to them and try to twist their arm a little bit. They came to us first and said, we're ready, we hear you're doing this and how can we participate? And you know, I think in some of those situations, it was probably driven by some specific incidents that had happened either in their schools and their local communities, and they really saw it as a way to respond to that and to provide resources to their staff. So, you know, unfortunate that those situations happened, but certainly they were looking for a way to respond to that and bring resources to their community. All right, well, I will leave the slides with you guys and they'll come out to you. Feel free to reach out to any of us and we'll do our best to answer and get you connected in any way that we can. And we're happy to come back anytime and provide updates on what we're doing and progress and outcomes and things like that.
I just added, if there's something that this task force could do as a recommendation or something to get schools bought into this more, let us know what, you don't have to tell us today.
Yeah.
But as we're thinking about legislative asks coming up in the next session and recommendations to the governor and school board, if there's something that you think that would be helpful for the task force to make a recommendation for, let us know.
Absolutely, and we are including an ask for some continued funding for this initiative. So I'll put together some language and we'll get that over to you. And I'll also engage with Ruby and Sabrina, our leads on this initiative, and see if there's other things on their radar.
Great.
So could I pass this on to?
You could just.
That's fun.
All right, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
It was great meeting with you.
Right, so we have one person, you may have seen on the original agenda, we had Dr. Tate coming today, but he had a family emergency, so we had to take him off the agenda. So I'm actually gonna be able to give you a little bit of your time back in your day today. But I'll open the floor to any questions or comments that people have before we close it up today. One of the things that I would ask you to look at is the upcoming dates. Make sure you have those on your calendars. And I know some of y'all are students and some of y'all are teachers and some of y'all work in schools. I'll be glad to provide a letter to your principal or your whoever that may be to let them know what the purpose of this is, so that they will allow you to come to the meetings in the future. The next meeting, one of the things that we'd like to do is talk about any other recommendations that you guys have that we would like to include on recommendations for budgetary items that you guys think are necessary for safer schools. Like the request that I'm putting together for NC Safe, the stuff that you heard on youth mental health first aid today. I know we've talked about in the past the need for additional support staff in schools, such as counselors and social workers and those types of things. But if there are other items that you guys think we really need to have on the agenda for the next meeting to cover, please feel free to shoot those to me. I want to introduce Jared over here. Jared Pone is is with our external affairs office with juvenile justice. We brought him on. He's going to help me with all the management of this task force, getting all the stuff out to folks. Aaron Hickey over here, who's done an awesome job for the last few years, getting all the information out to you guys, will continue to help out. But Jared's going to be the main point person. And so we'll have Jared send out an email to you all. If there are items that you think that we need to have on the task force agenda for next time, please let us know that. I heard from Mr. Duncan that we may want to look at the physical security issue. So that's something that we can add for our future task force meetings also is have those folks come in and talk about school design and CEPTED, crime prevention through environmental design, and see what if there are other additional recommendations that this task force wants to make on that. And I had a last point I'll make and then open the floor to you all is several people asked me about the committee work. If you are on a particular committee right now, and that committee hasn't been meeting very much, we're trying to kind of rework the committees right now to be focused around topics that you guys are really interested in. I know Dr. Ellis's, Stephanie Ellis, who could not be here today, but her committee has been extremely active, and she's working on the school mental health part of it. So if that's the area that you're interested in, I know Sheriff Rogers is working on the physical security part of it. And so those are the two committees that have been really active. If there's a particular area that you want to really focus on moving forward as a committee, those committees do not just have to have task force members. You can have other people that are just experts in the community. But when those recommendations come back to the task force, Only task force members can vote on the recommendations, but you can have anybody that you want on the subcommittees to help you guys come up with the, recommendations that you want to have pushed forward. So if you're not currently on one or you don't know which committee you're on, I know we got 2 new students today, so y'all aren't on a subcommittee yet. We'll make sure to get you assigned to one that you may be interested in. And Jared will send out an email to you guys letting you know what the options are, and you can choose which committee you want to serve on. Any other comments, questions, thoughts, before we wrap it up today?
Just like to say off the record, Luke Stancer, who was on our committee representing the student, I keep up with him. He's engaged. He's gonna be giving me.
Oh, awesome.
Just want to tell the ones that knew.
Absolutely. It's awesome. Thank you for sharing this. Absolutely.
And can you send out, when you send the slides for the last presentation, can you send out like the list of committees too?
Absolutely. We sure can. That'd be great. Any other questions, comments? All right. Then we will adjourn the meeting. Thank y'all so much for being here.
Thank you.